everybody, to this episode of The Monthly Blend, a monthly video podcast brought to you by Next, powered by Schulman Rogers and CONNECTpreneur. I'm Tian Wong, founder and host of the Big Idea CONNECTpreneur community, which is a global community of over 30,000 investors, founders, and business leaders from around the world. I'm also CEO of Opus 8, which helps companies and alternative investment managers raise money through our network of over 3,500 accredited private investors, angels, and family offices throughout the U.S. Along with my co-host, Anthony Millen, who's the founder and chair of Next, powered by Schulman Rogers, we are pleased to bring you this monthly video podcast, which covers trends, information, and interesting research and tidbits, as well as fascinating interviews with game changers and newsmakers here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore Metroplex. Anthony and I started this podcast almost 2 years ago as a way to increase awareness of cool, innovative happenings in our region, to break down silos and serve as a mechanism to do our part in helping to bring the region together and to help foster innovation and entrepreneurship here. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to have a conversation with Seth Goldman, a prolific serial entrepreneur, investor, and industry pioneer. A native of Massachusetts, Seth got his undergraduate degree from Harvard, and he got his MBA from the Yale School of Management. What brought Seth to DC was he got a job at the Calvert Funds, which was one of the first socially responsible mutual fund managers in the country. In 1996, he, along with his Yale School of Management professor, Barry Nailbuff, co-founded Honest Tea, which everybody knows the brand, and had a great run with Honest Tea until he exited by selling the company to Coca-Cola. Seth is also an investor and executive chair of public company Beyond Meat, which is a leader in plant-based meat substitutes. And he's also a founder of Eat the Change, which is doing some very interesting things with celebrity chef Spike Mendelsohn. We're going to get into all of this momentarily. Seth is also an active leader in the conscious capitalism movement, and we'll talk about that as well. He's also an investor in a variety of food and food tech-related startups. And most recently, with the sunsetting of Honest Tea by Coca-Cola, Seth and his partners have started a new, or shall I say, a 2.0 version of an iced tea company called Just Iced Tea. Welcome, Seth, and I want to turn things over to our co-host, Anthony Millen here, who is a serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist with the Third Sphere family of venture capital funds, and also one of the nation's leading startup attorneys. Anthony is founder and chair of Next, powered by Schulman Rogers, which is disrupting the way legal services are being delivered with a unique fixed price structure that allows for expert legal advice at reasonable costs. Next was recently selected by Legal Week as Startup Law Firm of the Year, as well as a finalist for Most Innovative Law Firm by Legal Times. Anthony, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Tien. And Seth, again, it's so great to have you with us today. That is a tremendous list of accomplishments to have built so many great brands and companies. And we're going to dig a little bit into some of that. You know, first with Honest Tea, you were a real pioneer in the reduction of sugar in drinks and the use of natural and organic products at a time that it was not as known or popular or how important people really see it today. What was your inspiration behind Honest Tea, and what are you most proud of in terms of the tremendous success that you had there?
Well, first, I just want to say it's great to be with you guys. You are both folks I've known more than a decade and worked with in the DC area, and I appreciate all you're doing to make our region a thriving area, especially for entrepreneurs, which are folks who are near and dear to my heart. But to answer your question, Anthony, I started Honest Tea because I was thirsty. I just went to the beverage cooler and I saw all of these super sweet drinks out there, and it just wasn't something for me. And fortunately, my co-founder, Barry Nailbuff, agreed. And apparently a lot of other folks did too, because it took a while, but we, started with that less sweet taste profile. And then we added in organic ingredients, and then we added in fair trade certified ingredients. And gradually we became, over 10 years, it took us to become the top selling tea in the natural channel. And then at that time, when Coca-Cola invested, we were able to launch and expand and become really the top selling organic tea around the country. And then we also really saw the expansion of the Honest brand with the launch of what was called Honest Kids, which is an organic kids drink. And so I think what I'm most proud of is what Honest Tea did in terms of democratizing organic, meaning expanding healthier drinks and more sustainable drinks to beyond the natural channel. We love the natural channel, and it's still a channel I'm very deeply committed to, but it's for me a model. And when you can get beyond the natural channel and you're reaching people every day, that's when it becomes really exciting to see the impact and the scale. And so, as Tien referenced, Honest Tea has been sunsetted. I guess that's a gentle way to put it. but Honest Kids is continuing. Coca-Cola still has that brand. And so what I'm excited about with Honest Kids is that that's a product that's sold in major restaurant chains, whether it's McDonald's, Wendy's, Subway, Chick-fil-A. And so for millions of Americans, Honest Kids is the first organic product they consume. And it's at an affordable price point. McDonald's, when they launched Honest Kids, did not increase the price. And so even just when you look at Honest Kids sold in McDonald's, that event, them carrying the product, and over the course of a year, it'll remove over 1 billion calories from the American diet. So those are some of the things that I'm still, proud about. And of course, just the whole experience was just a wonderful group of people who built a brand we were all passionate about.
It's tremendous when you talk about what you're most proud of, to be at the front end and help create what's really been a whole movement of, beyond just the product. And so it sometimes takes visionaries who are successful and can show that you can do something that has that kind of positive impact on health and on wellness, and at the same time be successful in terms of a company. I look at it as one of the great companies that showed you don't have to choose one or the other. You can really do both. Tien mentioned also, and you mentioned Coca-Cola invested and then you sold to Coca-Cola. As you're speaking to other entrepreneurs about selling their company, what lessons did you learn that you could share with other entrepreneurs? And, is there anything in that process that you do differently that you would recommend to people kind of looking at that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I've certainly done a lot of thinking about that with Honest Tea being discontinued. What could we have done differently? And, I stayed on. We sold Honest Tea to Coca-Cola in 2011, and I stayed on through 2019. So I did not, just sort of take the buyout and run away. I continued to build a brand, and we continued to scale. And so based on what I knew at the time, it was the right decision. And I would have said, it was again. I think as we look at what we're doing now with Eat the Change, I'm certainly thinking about whatever we do, we've got to build it to be larger and more powerful. I think Honest Tea was still very much in its formative stages when Coca-Cola started to invest in 2008. And that was one of the reasons I stayed on. But, there is a certain level of scale that Honest Tea did not reach that we're looking to reach with Eat the Change, where you make it unstoppable. And so that's one element. But I think every other aspect, I think we structured the deal the right way. The relationship with Coca-Cola really did go the right way. There were changes in Coca-Cola's personnel that I obviously had no control over. And I think that ultimately led to a change in strategy and a change of focus. That can happen anywhere, and it's not something you can anticipate. So I don't have any regrets about what we did with Coca-Cola.
But that journey that you talk about then led to a new journey.
Right.
And again, also on the front edge of brand new industries and markets and trends. And that was with Beyond Meat. How did you get involved with Beyond Meat? What kind of excited you about what they were doing? And where do you see that market moving in the future in terms of plant-based meats alternatives?
Yeah, and I'll just give a little context. So going back to around 2004, I had gotten involved with a organic baby food company called Happy Baby. I was on the board and really enjoyed that work with them. Two amazing women who basically started from nothing and eventually built it and eventually sold it to Danone, but really changed the baby food category. At the time, everything was in glass jars, and if you look today at the shelf, it's almost all pouches. And Happy Baby was one of the first to do that. And so after Happy Baby had sold to Danone, I stepped off that board, and I was kind of like, all right, well, I feel like I have enough bandwidth to be on another board. So I just got to find a company I'm excited about. And in 2012, my wife read an article about this company getting started on the West Coast that was seeking to replicate the taste and texture of meat using only plants. It's called Beyond Meat. And she said, boy, if you could help this company, that would be a great thing, because our family had been vegetarian, but we were frustrated often by the choices. So we never had doubts that, it was a good thing to do ethically. We just were often disappointed when it came time for a barbecue or something like that. And so I sent an email to info@beyondmeat.com and just said, I read about you guys. It sounds like a really neat enterprise. If there's any way I can help, I'd love to help. And they reached right back out and they needed help. And so I got involved as an investor and then board member, and then eventually became, as you mentioned, executive chair of the board. And it was so exciting because I joined the business when it was doing less than $1 million in sales. And, we took it from there to, scaling it internationally, took the company public. Today Beyond Meat's doing over 400 million in sales annually. And so it's really created a whole category. When you go to the grocery store now, the meat section is no longer just the animal meat section. There is a section for plant-based meat. And then you go to most restaurants now, they also have a plant-based meat section. So we're excited. I continue to be excited about what's happening in that category. Like any category, it goes through cycles of growth and retraction. So this past year was a challenging year, but I've just bought, I don't know if you guys have tasted, they have a new product, Beyond Steak, that is amazing. And we actually just had some over Thanksgiving. It was delicious. So I'm excited to see them continue to innovate and develop really wonderful products.
I remember early on talking to you about Beyond Meats, and you were talking about that concept of the grocery stores having plant-based meat products in the same sections and how
That's
big
right.
that would be. And it's really amazing to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, it's rare that you see a whole new category come out, in such a short time. So the Beyond Burger was just launched in 2016. So really just 6 years ago. And as you know, when you go to so we talk about the meat section now, it isn't really just meat as we traditionally find it. It's really the protein section. And there's just a spectrum of which plant-based is certainly one of them.
And here you are with your newest venture, Eat the Change. And I'm sure our listeners would love to hear a little bit about what's behind Eat the Change and kind of what your vision is and what you're excited about in terms of where you're all planning to take this company.
Yeah, this is a fun one. So in 2019, as I mentioned, I was just getting ready to step away from Coca-Cola and honesty. I knew by the end of the year that I would want to be doing something new. And then the beginning of 2020, I shifted from being executive chair of the board of Beyond Meat to just chair of the board. And that also freed me up to give me enough space to create a new enterprise. And so then I was thinking, well, what is it going to be? I had gotten involved with the chef Spike Mendelsohn and other wonderful partners in launching a restaurant business called Plant Burger. And that was a really exciting plant-based burger chain. We now have 13 of those up and running around the mid-Atlantic, up into Boston. And they had a marketing for Plant Burger, who happens to be my oldest son, and developed a great slogan, which was "Eat the change you wish to see in the world." And the more I kept hearing that phrase, the more I thought, boy, that's a really powerful phrase. If you can look at it as a call to action, you can look at it as a empowerment, you could look at it as a call to accountability, but it could also be a brand where, everything that we would sell would be planet-friendly food. And so I started collaborating with Spike, thinking about what would be the right kind of foods to offer. And our first product we developed was mushroom jerky. And mushrooms are this amazing food, nutrient dense, with really unique nutrients that aren't found in plants. And they're super water efficient. It only takes 40 gallons of water to grow a pound of mushrooms. And you contrast that with it takes 1,900 gallons of water to grow a pound of almonds. So it's a very different type of footprint. And so we launched that product in the natural channel. And then I thought, boy, I'd love to see if we can make a product like what we did with Honest Kids, but to make it a snack that could go in kids' lunchbox. And so we thought about that. We looked at carrots. What could we do with that? And we ended up, we started trying to make a carrot chip. We couldn't get the right consistency. So instead, we took carrots and we soaked them in fruit juice, and then we dried them out and flavored them. And then we ended up with these things called carrot chews, which are delicious and have just launched and go in lunch boxes. And So we're busy, selling mushrooms and carrot juice, minding our own business. And then I got this unsolicited call from the Coca-Cola company. I remember the date. This was on May 23rd of 2022. And they told me very, very respectfully, and they gave me the courtesy of the call to say they were going to be discontinuing Honesty. They were going to keep Honest Kids, but they were going to discontinue Honesty. And I described it as a gut punch. It was just so sad, really heartbreaking. All the people who put so much time and effort into building Honesty, and to see that brand go away. And I posted that day on LinkedIn that I had just been informed. And actually, most of the people who found out about it through that LinkedIn post, including a lot of the suppliers for Honesty and the customers. And so the response to that LinkedIn post was overwhelming. It was viewed more than 1 million times, and just thousands of responses and comments. And it helped crystallize for me that, Honesty, just because Coca-Cola was stepping away, it didn't mean that wasn't a viable market opportunity. In fact, it was, now I can say in retrospect, it was a gift the Coca-Cola company gave me to look at the category we built. And I mean, I mean the people on my team, and all of a sudden have the chance to go back into. And so at first we were thinking, well, maybe we should, someone approached me, hey, can we launch a tea brand? You can be the face of it. And I thought, well, why would I want to be the face of it? Like, my team, and we have 16 people on our team, 9 of them worked with me at Honesty. If anyone's going to launch an organic bottled tea brand, it should be us. So on June 6th, we decided to launch a new tea brand. And by September 6th, basically 90 days later, we had sold our first bottle of Just Iced Tea. Got a bottle here. We had sold it at Plant Burger in New York City. And here we are now today. It's just a little after December 6th. So I guess that's about 6 months later. And Just Iced Tea is carried nationally in Whole Foods, nationally in Sprouts. And we're seeing the early numbers. They're really exciting. So we're right back into the iced tea game. And a lot of the same distributors we worked with at Honest Tea are partners again. And so it's a fun ride. Yeah, I will say it is less stressful than it was the first time. It's certainly growing quickly, which is fun.
And it really shows when you have experience in something and you're doing something that not only you love, but that how the execution of it and the speed and lessons learned come into play. So yeah. I think to me, this is also just a great business case around focusing on things that you know and have experience in.
And I think you're right. And I want to emphasize that part of it is the experiences that when I have a team that's super well oiled in terms of they know each other, they work well with each other. They were completely selfless in the sense that nobody had any agenda other than speed to market. And so, if somebody knew, look, hey, obviously with that kind of timeline, you have to move really quickly on labels. And someone's like, hey, I'm out of pocket. If I can't get back to you within a few hours of an email, I basically have abstaining. I lose my veto vote. There's no such thing as no one got to come back and say, oh, we should have done this differently. It's like, no, everyone understood the way it was going to happen. And the other thing I think lesson there was a karma effect, which was that when we ran Honest Tea, we treated people well. We going all the way to the tea gardens, right? The fair trade suppliers, meaning we were paying that premium and for organic. And so when we announced we were getting back into the game, and even before that, actually, a lot of the suppliers reached out and said, we want to work with you again. We hope you'll do this, because we had treated them well the first time. And frankly, in some situations, Coca-Cola hadn't treated them as well. So for them, this was a chance to, do it again with a partner they really liked working with.
And to just end this segment, I want to go to an organization that I have a lot of great feelings about and passion for the mission and have been involved in, which is Bethesda Green, and which you co-founded and are chair. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about what motivated you to start Bethesda Green, and just to tell people about its mission and its impact. It's kind of very dear to my heart.
Sure. So in 2007, Honest Tea was becoming a real company. It felt like we were going to be around. I would say prior to 2007, we were still scrambling, like, can we keep this thing in business? Just around then, I thought, well, we're going to be in business, and it's time to think about what kind of citizen we are as a company. We'd always been based in Bethesda, Maryland. And so we wanted to make sure we were, a contributing member to this community that we love so much, where our children are raised and schooled. And so I was struck by the fact initially, the first motivator was, well, here we are, this company with organic ingredients committed to sustainability, and we're selling single-use packages. But even on the street where our office is, there's no recycling. There's no street side recycling. And so initially, I had reached out to a bunch of local businesses and to the Bethesda Urban Partnership that handles that and said, why aren't we recycling? And it turns out that Bethesda Urban Partnership had trucks with double bays. They had the trucks with the that could recycle. They just didn't have the bins, and they didn't have a budget for recycling bins. And I said, so you're telling me if we get recycling bins, you'll recycle on the street? And they said, yeah. And well, that's not hard. Let's make that happen. So we did that. And then at the same time, this was kind of funny. Honest Tea was doing a big national promotion with Jameis, the bike company. We were buying 500 bikes. And at the same time, we had about 50 employees. And I said, well, let's buy bikes for all of our employees as a benefit. We're having a good year. And then I reached out to a lot of the same companies I talked to. And I said, hey, we're buying 550 bikes. We're getting a great price. If you think any of your employees want to participate, let us know. And, we'll basically be able to get you that same price. And so a bunch of those companies participated. And then I said, hey, we're interested in doing more stuff around sustainability in Maryland, in Bethesda particularly. If you want to join, let us know. And that really became the founding partners of Bethesda Green. And then what happened was that Capital One Bank happened to have some extra office space over one of their branches. And they said, you could use this as your office space if you'd like. And so that sounds great. But we only had one executive director. He's like, I don't need that much space. And then we said, well, what if we made that a green business incubator? And we could offer that space to other entrepreneurs. And so that totally made sense. And that was how we launched an incubator. And Bethesda Green has continued to evolve. We still have that now incubator and accelerator, and are always finding ways to engage the community in more green living. And it could be everything from setting up butterfly gardens to thinking about how to install solar. And to me, it's an evolving organization as the sustainable challenges of the community evolve. We want Bethesda Green to evolve too.
Great. Well, that is very inspiring for all of us, and really appreciate learning about all of your different businesses and ventures. And now I'm going to hand it back to Tien.
Great stuff. Let's talk about conscious capitalism. This is something that brought you to DC in the first place, obviously, sort of
Right.
You're socially focused, socially mission-oriented, the way you conduct business, the way you live your life, frankly. And you are a leader in this conscious capitalism movement nationally, for sure, and certainly in the DC region. I know you've gotten Jonah, your son, involved. He's on the board of the DC group. And I'm so happy to see, conscious capitalism become mainstream, and it's just a wonderful thing to just see the evolution. But what are the aims of the organization? How do they measure success? What are the next couple of years look like for raising awareness of conscious capitalism?
Sure. Just a little background first. My background before I got into business, I was in the nonprofit sector, and I did work on Capitol Hill. And I think I had thought of myself, at least in college, as, someone who'd enter politics at some point. And somewhere along the way,
It's never too late.
Well, at least for now, I realize that there's a great way to pursue public good through the private sector. And my initial work at Calvert, who really was one of the first mutual funds to take a look at putting up screens and other affirmative ways to pursue public good through investment. And so that was exciting to be part of that movement early on. And I started to see at Calvert that the public companies could do a certain level of impact, but the entrepreneurs could do so much more, because you could design and craft a business with the mission intact. And what we always talked about at Honest Tea and now with Eat the Change is that the mission is brewed into the product. So we don't have to give out. It's nice if someday we're making profits and we can give money to charity, but we don't have to give out money to charity to make an impact. We can make an impact with every bottle we sell, because every bottle we sell is going to be lower calorie. So we're doing better things for the consumer's health, but it's also organic. So we're doing better things for the planet's health. And then every bottle is sourced with fair trade ingredients. So we're doing better things for the communities that we source from. And so to me, that's what's been a real sea change, is this recognition that a business can be designed to have impact every time it makes a transaction, not just sort of at the end of the year or when there's profits. And so we think of ourselves as I said, public spirited entities operating in the marketplace, and consumers really start to understand that and embrace it, and retailers do as well. And to me, that's a healthy evolution. I always encourage businesses to think more deeply about the impact of their everyday work, not just what they get to do with their profits.
Yeah, no, that's great background. And you're also a prolific food and food tech investor. I'm sure everyone with an idea is calling you. I know I've sent you a few entrepreneurs over the years. What are you investing in these days? Anything super exciting you want to talk about?
Yeah. And my focus right now is eat the change. So these days when people reach out, I just say, I appreciate it, but I've got to be focused. And so, I was able to, a few years ago when I was less in the building mode, I was able to be more involved in investments. And but between Plant Burger, Eat the Change, and Beyond Meat, which is still a real focus, I'm betting big on plant-based foods, obviously. I'm betting big on more sustainable options and options that I think are better for the planet. But those really are my three main activities. And so those general approaches, I think, are still where there's tons of opportunity. But personally, I'm just trying to stay focused on those three.
Got it. And just getting back to Just Iced Tea for a moment, I have two questions on that front. Number one is, when are you going to roll out the Moroccan mint green tea?
It's out. It's out.
I can't live without it. Oh, is it out already?
Yeah, it's in. You go to Whole Foods. It's part of our initial product line. I dedicated it to Tien. No, it was always the top seller for Honest Tea. So we knew when we launched this, as much as Spike is a creative chef and makes amazing recipes, we knew for the first 6 varieties, we had to go with the greatest hits. And so Moroccan Mint was a greatest hit, and it is certainly continues to be a greatest hit.
It's the best beverage in the world, I think, and I love it. And when Anthony and I were at your house for Wes's fundraiser, you didn't have any. I was so bummed out, but I'm glad you're out with it now.
Yeah.
So the other question I have is, what are you doing with Just Iced Tea? Is it going to be Honest Tea 2.0? Like, are you going to do the same thing with the product rollouts and sort of that national distribution strategy? Or are there things you're going to tweak?
Yeah, well, we think about
this. You can bite at the apple now, so you can really do it the way you want.
That's right. That's right. So it is definitely 2.0, but a 2.0 plus. So we do think the recipes are somewhat enhanced. We don't use any organic cane sugar with these recipes. We're using agave and honey, which has a nice clean finish to it. We do see, interestingly, a little bit surprisingly, the marketplace is actually less crowded now. So it turns out that bottled tea has evolved. A lot of folks got out of the glass bottle. And so there's a lot of stuff in plastic bottles, but I don't think when you think about premium tea, I don't think that's the best way to sell tea. And so for the glass bottle, we're just seeing tons of receptivity. We're already talking to some restaurant chains, some of which we worked with at Honest Tea, but some we didn't. And so I certainly see it scaling more quickly, more aggressively. We do have funding. We raised money over this summer, and we raised more money really than Honest Tea did its entire first 10 years. So we're going at it in a more ambitious way early. And we are thinking also about other package iterations and obviously what other innovations we can bring out. But for right now, there's lots of opportunity just going out and recapturing the shelves that we worked so hard to develop for Honest Tea.
I mean, congratulations. And I know my daughters and my son, we are looking very forward to drinking the change. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, I just have one final question. I know we're running out of time. We have a lot of listeners and viewers, who love what you're doing. They love entrepreneurship and innovation. Are there areas where they can help? Whether it's with Conscious Capitalism, with Bethesda Green, or whatever. What are you guys looking for in the coming year, and how can they get involved?
Well, I think a great first step is to heed that call to action. I talk about Eat the Change as I said, it is a call to action, and it's a call to empowerment. And so we always encourage people to think about what they eat and to put it through that lens of environmental impact. And it's not that everyone has to become vegan. It's really about, can you consider the environmental footprint of your food at least a few times a day? So maybe it's just for breakfast. I'm going to avoid animal-based foods for breakfast. Or maybe it's, when I do make a salad or at home, I'm going to try to choose more organic produce to put in there. Or maybe it's a case of avoiding food waste. So, hey, the bananas, maybe they're a little browner than normal, but don't throw them out, make banana bread. Just small decisions that everybody can make along the way to reduce their environmental footprint. And when we all do that, it becomes really big. So that's, I would encourage. And we have tons of resources on our website at eatthechange.com. We actually have a whole month of activity that we do in April, and we leave it up for the year. So we call it the Incredible Planet Challenge, and we encourage everyone to join us on that. And then, of course, to follow Eat the Change, both on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well. This is a movement we're trying to build. And so as much as anybody can join it, we want them to. And wherever they are, it's fine. We're certainly not purists here. We want everybody to do whatever they can to move a little closer toward a planet-friendly diet.
I love it, Seth. I love everything you're doing. I always have. I love how you think big and how, you are really making a big impact in the world with everything you're doing. And I'm proud to call you a friend. And thanks for sharing your time with me. I'd love to turn it over to Anthony, who will wrap it up.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tien. And Seth, we just want to thank you again for joining us on the monthly blend today. And to echo what Tien said, we thank you for all that you do for the community, for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, both in actions you take and examples you make for other people to follow. And we wish you a great holiday season. And we thank you again.
Great to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Seth.
Sure.
We'll be swinging by for some ice tea, for sure.